Welcome back, McFly subscribers. Today we're continuing the April Stonefly series with the Madam X fly, a relatively simple and effective dry stonefly. Now I will discuss this fly later in the video, as I'm sure you want to get started tying now, but in case you haven't seen this channel before, this is McFly Angler.
Starts now.
Okay, let's get started tying. Place a hook securely in your vise. For a hook, I'm using Resin's 2312 in size 10. Traditionally, this is tied with a straight, long shank hook, and this definitely is a long shank hook. However, this has a curve downward to it, as you can see here. Now, I like using this, and I will describe why later in the video. But whatever hook you use, just make sure it's a long shank hook. We will also need some thread, and I'm using the 140 denier UTC Ultra thread. Now it's a fairly thick thread, which is beneficial for this fly, and it's also a flat thread. Now you could use a bit thinner, like this Vivis 6/0, however it's a round thread, and a flat thread will be much better. Also, this fly's body is comprised of whatever thread you're using, so to change colors, use a different color thread. Here is Vivis 140, also on a flat thread, and popular colors are orange, black, brown, and of course yellow. Start your thread with a small space behind the hook eye, maybe 2 eye lengths back. Trim off the waist. Then bring your thread back up to just behind where you started the thread. We now need some deer hair, and this all-purpose deer hair in the natural color will work just fine. Cut off a small amount. Now I really don't know how much to describe to you how much to cut off, but here's a visual reference for you. Now once you tie a few, you will know exactly how much you need. Make sure you stroke out all the underfur. And a clump this small, you can usually get it all with just your fingers. Then we will need to align the tips. So stick it in your stacker and give it a few taps. Now make sure you pull it out of the stacker with your left hand, as we want to tie this in pointing rearward on the fly. Okay, measure this out so the tips stick out past the back of the hook, maybe about a hook gap length. Then transfer that clump to your other hand, and make a few loose wraps before binding down the clump. But do not let go of the hair though. Instead, wind through the butt ends like so, which will help keep this from spinning on the hook. It will also add a bit of a taper down to the hook eye as well, which will be beneficial in a future step. Okay, now that the butt ends are tied down, lift up the fur slightly off the hook shank, and make loose spiral wraps down the hook shank, until you reach just shy of the very back of the hook. Lifting up the hair like this helps to keep it directly on top of the hook. When you reach the back, make a couple wraps and then cinch down. Now this will flare out the tail, so don't let go yet. Instead, make a couple loose wraps back up on the tail slightly, to help lay that tail flare back down. Now you can cut off the butt ends of the hair. Let's form the body. Start making touching loose wraps up the hook shank, trying not to compress the hair too much. Now you will compress it slightly, especially if you pull on the thread like I did here, so just limit that as much as you can. Okay, actually I decided to bring my thread back up to the front with spiral wraps, and you can too if you're having trouble getting an even compression. Then I'm going back down, and this should be about as compressed as you make the body. If you need to pull out any extra thread, and your bobbin is too tight, just pinch it before pulling. Here I am twisting the bobbin counterclockwise to uncord the thread, and this will flatten the thread out to make it cover more area with each wrap. It also makes the wrap smoother. Okay, try to make this as smooth as you can, and if you have to go up and down multiple times to cover everything, then do so. Now I'm uncording the thread once again to flatten it even more. Now the reason we don't want to compress this body is the deer hair holds air, and this will help the fly float better when we don't compress it. Okay, that's a pretty even body there. Now we need more deer hair for the wing, and this time we need much more, about double the amount that we use for the tail. For a clump this size though, we do need a comb to get the underfur out. Go ahead and stack it to align the tips, but pull it out of the stacker with your right hand. Now measure this wing out to extend from back of the tail to the hook eye. Oh, and bring your thread up to right behind the hook eye. And then tie this down with 2 loose wraps, and then give it a slight tug while pinching the tie-in. Wrap back slightly with a couple wraps, and then bind down tight. Now the fibers will still flare out, but not as much this way. Now start making wraps through the butt ends, binding down each wrap. This will help keep the wing from spinning, and will also form a taper in the opposite direction that you did with the body, creating a smooth transition. Now cut off the butt ends as close as you can. You can push the tips out of the way if you need, and make sure you get these cut off as close as you can. This will go a long way in forming that wing. Okay, now let's clean up that section, covering the butt ends with thread wraps. Then end with your thread back a couple hook eye lengths, roughly where you started your thread to begin with. Pull the tips up and back. Helps to push down with your thumb to flatten them as well, and just keep stroking them back until they're sitting nice and even on top of the hook. When you're happy with the look, then make a couple wraps over it, wrapping rearward slightly with loose wraps. Then come back up in front of those wraps before binding down. This will help keep that wing from flaring out. Then make a few more wraps, ensuring that when you go past any of the wraps towards the wing, that those wraps are loose wraps. Only make tight wraps towards the head. Now you can adjust the wing slightly. I like to push down with my thumb to flatten out the wing a bit, and I personally like a flat sitting wing, as I feel it looks more like a stonefly. Okay, you can see here how that head looks. This is what you want, an even amount on either side of the hook when looking from below. Now I left a bit too much space up near the hook eye, and that's okay though. It is better to leave too much space than not enough. Next time I'll make sure I wrap up a bit more before bending that wing back. Okay, now we need some round rubber legs. And I really like these centipede legs by Montana Fly Company. I'm using the medium size today, but they come in smaller sizes, which you might want. It's up to you. Snip off one leg. Then we will double the leg over on itself, making sure that the tips are roughly even. By the way, the centipede legs come in many different colors, so get creative and tie these in whatever colors you want. Now, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, I just really like this product. Oh, and here are some in the small size, which you could use. Like I said though, I like the medium for this fly. Okay, tie this in on top of the wing, with more sticking out in the back than in front. 2 loose wraps will be sufficient for now. Then clip the loop to form 2 legs. Now pull each leg down the side of the fly like so. And generally the back legs are canted upward slightly, while the front legs are downward. When you're happy with the positioning, then make a couple medium tension wraps over the legs. Not too loose, so that the legs move, but not too tight either where the wing gets flared out. Then whip finish over everything before trimming off the waist. Now you can cut the legs to size, and I like the front legs to extend out just past the hook eye, and the back legs to right at the back of the wing. And make sure you get those back legs even, and I need a bit more on this one. Okay, look the fly over and adjust where needed. If the wing is coming over slightly, like it is here on this side, you can push it back a bit if need be. Okay, now let's make sure nothing moves. And for that, I really like this Solarez Ultra Thin Resin. This stuff will keep everything in place, and has a handy paintbrush built into the cap for easy application. Paint a bit over each rubber leg, and then make sure some is on the underside part where the wing starts, and also some over the whip finish. And then last, paint a bit over the top portion of the wing, and some should bleed into the wing a bit, like I have here. And then spin the fly while grabbing your UV light. Then cure it in, starting from far away, and get closer with your light. That resin makes this fly about as durable as possible. Fish will be able to strike it without fear of it getting all misaligned. And the fly is now finished. While this is a relatively simple fly to tie, without many steps and only some thread, deer hair, and rubber legs, it does have a few techniques that can be a bit challenging. But I hope this video helped you with some of those challenges. Don't worry if you don't get it perfect your first try. Just keep tying, and once you get the hang of them, they end up being quite quick to tie. And I just noticed here, I didn't tie this one perfect either. I left some hair showing in the back of the abdomen here. In all honesty, that's okay. It should not change the ability of it to catch fish. But I do want to fix that, so I will add a touch of that resin there. And it made that spot almost disappear. Plus now the tail will be more durable as well, so win-win. Okay, so the Madam X, what a great pattern. Semi-simple to tie, with not too many steps. And with that curved down hook, it looks just like a stonefly depositing eggs on the surface of the water. That profile from the underside there looks really great as well. Perfect for mimicking little stoneflies. These also could work as a hopper imitation as well, and even caddis if tied super small and without the rubber legs. Now, like I said, these are typically tied with straight shank hooks, so you're welcome to use those. However, I really like the look of these with the curved hook like this. The yellow one here perfectly mimics a yellow Sally, but they can be tied in other colors as well, and I like a bright orange for fishing bass and sunfish out here in Texas where I live. Alright, there we go. We are 2 weeks into April now, with 2 different adult stonefly representations. I am halfway to filling up this stonefly box now. If you remember, last week I started off this adult stonefly series with the very popular stimulator fly. And next week I will be tying the PMX. The full name is the Parachute Madam X. While the name makes it seem like it's just the Madam X with an added parachute, I feel it is so much more than that. It's actually quite a different fly. A bit more difficult than today's, but it's a great stonefly representation. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos like this PMX. Now, in case you're wondering, I do sell these boxes on Amazon with free shipping. This one in particular has a magnetic back and open compartments, perfect for dry flies and small midges. When fishing small midges, the magnets help keep the flies from falling out. And as you can see here, I'm turning the box upside down and all the flies stay put. I will link to my Amazon storefront below in the description section of this video if you're interested. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor, Resin Fly. They made the hooks I use today, but they also make some of the best fly rods and reels for the money I have ever used. Best off, they're offering you all a discount. So if you're in the market for a new rod or a bunch of hooks or beads, go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout and they'll give you 15% off of your first order with them. Okay, well, thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this video, please hit the like button. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.